Okay, so we're going. Uh, Welcome to another edition of Red Thunder, the podcast that will inform and educate and analyze modern day events in the context of international law. Just making this up as I go along. So, as you are aware, the Assembly of First Nations was in Winnipeg for a few days last week. Another one of their very expensive meetings. And I wasn't there, but I have heard that they passed a resolution to reject the Government of Canada's Bill C5 to fast track natural resources projects.
Okay.
Now, Canada and the AFN have a relationship, and I'm not sure what that relationship is in terms. Well, I'm actually quite sure it's one where the federal government uses the AFN to do what it wants them to do. Is that a fair assessment? What's your assessment?
Very much similar. I'll go a little further than that, meaning if you look at the history of, first of all, the establishment of the NIB. Now, I just become aware of it, later on in years. But I looked at the history and I met some of the people who were former chiefs, members of the MIB. No, it became AFN. Now, it was refined purposely. If you go back to 1969, white paper policy, okay, that's when a lot of people woke up, myself as well, when I realized what the hell these guys are up to. Now, the proposed changes within the Indian Act was one of the things that upset most everybody because it was pretty clear it was going to lead to termination, which was not a word used widely at that time. A few of us knew, and the thing is this: the termination bill would have to be introduced. Now, the way I look at it is they have a history of continuously agreeing with government. If you look at the proposed changes within the Indian Act and also the programming, it's worded differently. I'm not the only one that was aware of this. There's others that came online and said very much the same thing. Some of them are very precise and being analytical about all of it. And they do research, obviously. So I agree with a lot of them. And there are a lot that came forward and said straight out, it's a carbon copy of the same policies they're trying to implement today through the AFN as they did when it was NIB, going to change from uh, 69 from one policy of Indian Affairs to another one that looked more attractive. Now, the the uh, the recent bill that came up, all right, my assessment is this: the the AFN, I don't know what would be the majority. I don't think it would say the majority, but a few of them do know really what kind of impact it's going to have on the future of our territories. Now, we're talking about the land and all it enhances. The people, usually it's people first, but without land, what are the people going to do? So that is what it's going to lead to in relation to going back to use that term, termination. It's happening. Now, the AFN, whether they're aware of it or not, as I say, some of them are, they don't care because they're well paid. And a lot of them are saying things like, and I've heard it from some of the chiefs a few years back, it's inevitable. What? Inevitable? In other words, accept the destruction of your homelands, your territory, and your people. Break the will of the people. It's still the same old strategy, only this time it's very well planned. So that's my perception of it. So standing up and saying, we're opposed to this bill. Well, there's probably protesters out on the street that are more sincere than most of them are, because it's a thing that they have to do because it will appease the people. That's all it is, a political venue, and most of it is. I'm not saying the majority of them don't care. I don't know. What matters to me is there's nothing they can do about it because they're under the law of the very people who are going to pass that bill. They're working with them. As far as passing the bill, no, they're probably even instructed to oppose it. Doesn't matter. They're under the law of the very people that put forward that bill to be passed to their parliament.
Well, when the Constitution was repatriated in 81, 82,
Two.
the NIB, AFN, whoever they were, the same group, they demanded that their existing treaty and Aboriginal rights be inextricably entrenched in the Constitution. Like, what was the sense in that?
What? Excuse me. The what?
Well, they wanted the treaty and Aboriginal rights inextricably entrenched in the Canadian Constitution, and they got it, and it looked like they won a terrific battle. But what is wrong? But what is wrong with that picture?
First of all, they have gone to their enemy, okay? Because the government is their enemy. Let me tell you this. I'll tell you this right now. Now, I'm talking law here. For example, in the United States, in relation to Indians or Indian people, now the soldiers, when they go to war, they pledge their allegiance to fight the enemy both at home and abroad. At home, the enemy is the American Indian. Same here, Canada. The reservations were set up for that purpose. POW camps. Identified by myself and a few others that had a look at international law and what it entails. So when we're talking about a particular law that is passed at the UN level that can't be stopped, we can stop all of it. That's what I'm trying to introduce. The exacting law that needs to be used to stop the madness, because they're not going to be able to do it. They can stand up and yell till their lungs fall out. It's not going to. You can't serve the devil and at the same time be a devil's advocate and go opposed to that devil. You know what I mean? Either you fight totally or you don't. Okay, to fight totally is to bring it back and not try this out. Because many people, when I meet them and they say, well, we'll try that, tell them no. Tell them no, don't try this. You're in it for life, or don't talk to me about it.
Well, these chiefs have voted against an act that would fast track the extraction of like lithium and cobalt and gold in places like the Ring of Fire in northern Ontario.
Yes.
And there are a group of band members, people who are camping out, and they're going to block a road that's going to be built into the area. Do they have a hope in hell of stopping the exploitation? It's not just the government of Canada; it's big business. There's big multinational corporations behind the government of Canada that want
Yeah,
those minerals.
yeah. See, that's the thing. The government of Canada is stacked with people. Even this prime minister. I mean, he's not on anybody's side. Not any people. Not even his own citizens. Now, having said that, allowing for corporations to come in and help themselves, and he's ready to sign everything away. See, that's where the very concept of ownership is of European mind. It's a European concept. Now, we don't go by ownership. We're title holders to the land, not as men, but the women do hold the title. Some of us already decided that it's going to be very soon we're going to have to make our move and straighten this government out. And I mean it sincerely. Because the only way that all of this can be resolved is when there's a tribunal. A tribunal. And some of the countries are very friendly. I've been in touch with some of the countries, I won't name any, but they responded positively when I sent the command to Queen Elizabeth, late Queen Elizabeth II. I have to back up what I'm saying, so I got hold of some of the countries, and the response was good. Excuse me. I'll tell you, there's what it is. Here's why I have no fear of it. To those countries that I talked to, or sent a message to their ambassadors, was this. By law, now, they're sworn, the civilized nations of the world are sworn by allegiance to do everything humanly possible to protect tribal custom and usage. First law of the land. Territories who have established or reestablished their true authority. The matriarch being the clan mothers or women of the clans. So it's not saying we're very close to that. We are that. I worked hard enough to bring about this day to even have this talk in this manner. Not that I was sworn to silence on many things I never discuss tribal business. But when we have in common an enemy that's at our doorstep ready to terrorize the people and the earth, a lot of talking doesn't cut it. Law can do it without having to fire a shot or go on the front lines and be arrested or harassed or disturbed by the RCMP like they did over here.
Well,
And all these people having what they call uh, traditional, what is that term? Hereditary chiefs. And yet all young women, a lot younger than these guys that are supposed to be hereditary chiefs doing the speaking, they're out front doing the talking. Well, those who understand what a tribe is, and there are many, and you know, even yourself, Supreme Court judges know this. I've come across a couple, and you're aware of them too. They've tried to help the Indian out. The point of it is, they wanted the Indian to wake up. They came to their court seeking help. Well, all they could do was tell them. But they both did it in a manner where it is a legal statement made that the Indians did not understand. All you got to do is find out. Dictionaries, you could. It is so simple if you really want to find out what it is that motivates the white civilized nation to assume jurisdiction over all tribal people. Because everybody on the reserve are descendants of tribal people. And there's nothing in their law or any law that can stop them from becoming who they were. Because the nation called Canada, they're guilty. They're guilty of every crime you can possibly think of. and they don't. Now, having said that, some of their crimes are so great that in the tribunal, they would have no defense. This is not a white man's court. We're talking about a tribunal run by our people, signatory tribal people. So they have no defense because there's too much evidence pointing out their crimes. There's too much evidence. See, a lot of them might say, just like the Nazis, oh, I'll just do my job, which they still do today. Bureaucrats always, oh, I'll just do my job. When you catch them in conversation, corner them. I'll just do my job, sir. I remind them that's what the Nazis said before some of them were hung, I should say, destroyed. Now, where you go back to what we're talking about, the resistance is great. My concern is this. You can go to that court like you experienced when we came down to report about that matter. Now, so in the court, when it was presented properly, I used that treaty, not the stipulations, not the benefits, if you will, that are dictated by your enemy and fought for by those who don't know. No, you take that treaty like I did to the international level, and what does it say? Treaties can only be based upon peace, not the surrender of land, imprisonment of the people on Indian reservations. I'm making a legal statement here. So that's a crime that they've committed. Now, going beyond international law, where does that law come from? It comes from the tribes. The foundation of international law is comprised of 6 Aboriginal treaties that are the foundation that every civilized nation must abide by. So, where they have to protect tribal custom and usage, the reason that these guys get around it because they consult with people like the AFN and they acknowledge them and give them the money because they know they're going the wrong way. That's simple. That goes for the chief and council system. The more they scream treaty and yell, they get more budgets to be quiet, bigger budgets, and that shuts them up.
Well, we've said it before, we'll say it again. The revolution will not be government funded.
That's for sure.
So what about those people that, like, it's not just with the Ring of Fire. There are some conscientious people that want to stop it. And I understand that there are some Innu people in northern Quebec that are also trying to stop mining and logging in their territory. So they're trying to physically get in the way of the trucks and whatnot. Are they not just going to get arrested by the cops because they're band members, part of that Band Indian Act system?
Well, I don't know what will happen, but I'll say this. Probably what will possibly happen is there's been so much pressure, which is wonderful, by our people across this country, when those Wet'suwet'en people, the Wet'suwet'ens were up against that force. It showed how evil they can be. Now they got to appease the poor native, right? They got to appease them, quell the disturbance, and all the white people that are supporters with open minds of our issues. Now, let's go back to resistance. Resistance to me comes down to this, and I'll say this now, and I'll back it up. To us, those of us who are tribal, we know that the shoe is now on the other foot. In other words, they used to be able to, and they still are doing it, openly killing people, killing Indians. They're killing. The RCMP have been doing it. And they've been doing it for a long time. Tribal custom and usage allows us to stop them for whatever it takes by our law. If the order is given by the authority, we have to do it. That day is coming. I don't want to see it, but that day is coming. And it's not a matter of war. It's not a matter of getting even, although I would look at it that way. for all the friends I've lost to their bullets. So, it's a hard thing for people to understand. After all this time, after all the years of suffering, what our forefathers, our forebears, Nokumaganak, Kishenawak, that Tenegayas, way back, and even today, a lot of the old people recall the suffering they went through. I, for one, and I wasn't alone. And I think of myself as fortunate. The point of it is, these crimes can be addressed. They're not just a complaint, just like going in front of the judge when you're arrested for blocking a road or whatever. What I'm saying, what they'll probably do is say, all right, release them with a notice to appear. It might happen in January. They say, well, April 22nd. Eventually, they'll allow that corporation to continue business as usual. Got it? Get these people out of the way, threaten them with arrest should they not appear, because they know those people are still under their law and jurisdiction.
Well, you had some experience with that with the Treaty 3. You alluded to it before, but with those 3 young women that were blocking a road, part of a group of people blocking a road, and they were arrested, the 3 of them, and they were hauled into court. One of them said she wanted to stick with Treaty 3, and she got fined or something. The other 2 said they wanted to stick with international law, and the evidence went missing or something, but they were let go. They walked without consequence. What's your interpretation of that case?
Well, I was there and I spoke on their behalf, and I told the 2 sisters that they would come under the protection of international law through Treaty 3. That's how that's how I presented it, because I took it to the highest level there is in relation to binding treaties. The rule of law that binds treaties is where I took it to, and it can only be based upon peace. So I got to respect Donald Fraser. He understood it. If he didn't, he found out. Because you take breaks for quite a while. I know he was calling for help to find out whether what I'm saying had any legal bearing at all. That's understandable. When you go to the courtroom, you're battling. I was battling to get them out of there by making him look at the law. Now, so where I didn't make a presentation other than verbally, still it's recorded and he goes and finds out. Well, eventually, he's got to make a ruling. Either you have jurisdiction or you don't. So that's what it came down to. It's no longer the charge we're dealing with. We're dealing with jurisdiction, which he didn't have. He knew that, because that treaty, used properly, will defeat. But they don't use it today properly. There's people saying they have a treaty for years, still going to jail.
Well, like, there's you, and then there's an army of lawyers that are paid a lot of money by band councils, by treaty groups, hundreds of millions of dollars to fight these things in court. What's the difference between you and them?
Me? Millions of dollars and the rule of law that I use. They go and swear their allegiance to uphold the law of the crown. Otherwise, they don't become a licensed practitioner of Canadian domestic law. Also, it derives from crown dominance or colonization. Now, so the colonizer was given permission in 82 by the so-called sovereign from England to carry on. Okay? So anybody who swears their allegiance to uphold the law of the crown is also giving allegiance to the corporations. You look at Canada. It's been for sale for many years, like I try to point out to people. So it's a corporation on the stock market. Uh, again, the lawyers have made millions off of the the suffering of our people. They make me sick. Leeches. Indian is big business. And these empty heads that are calling themselves Indian chiefs are paying these guys to speak for them. I went to try to help some people to stand up. They asked for help. I went to try to help them. What do? They turn back to a lawyer. They've been paying $1 million a year, whether he works for them or not, whether he has a case or not. Isn't that handy? $1 million. Just go to the reserve when you need a meeting or whatever. Well, that's going on everywhere. Now, where you have a corporate charter, they're now given free hand by the corporation through their branch of Indian Affairs, formerly known as Indian Affairs. Let them run it. Call it self-government. So these guys are just like some of these guys in third world that build empires and use the force of their armies to straighten people out, keep them in line. Well, they're using economic sanctions against their own people by keeping that money to themselves. It's sad. Where a lot of these things can be resolved. And it's the only way I can see the resolve, like I said, tribunal. Now, if these people start to understand treaty, I don't know who else they've been listening to, but I've been telling people for years. And they've seen it in the courtrooms. I don't know what it is. It's a mind control curse working? Question. Good question. You had
Well,
something else to mention in relation to.
well, there was talk about resistance. You had spoken before about Big Bear, Mr. Himasqua. He wouldn't sign what was it, Treaty 6?
Yeah,
He refused to sign it. And you have an interpretation of that, or stuff about that.
yeah. Well, he knew prior to this treaty process coming to the area he was living in, because they used to move around, just like, the seasons. Now, he was not allowed to go into territories that others had already signed away. That's what the whole thing was, start. Well, he said no, because they came to him and offered. He refused. He said no. He said, I'm not going to enter your trap. So he left. So they pursued him. They pursued him all through the territories that would still provide. Like the bush, they survived for a while, but always being on the move, it's hard to live that way. Now, so finally, but his people were so downtrodden and hungry, starving, he still wouldn't sign. But his son and daughter went to sign. Now, I don't know. I didn't live at that time. I don't know what went through their minds, hearts. But I stand by Mr. Yamaska. I would never sign either. See where I guess it became people's choice, didn't it? Now, having said that, why was there not, like he was trying to do? Big Bear was trying to organize the people to say, look, we approach them as one people. Well, I admire him. That's what I'm trying to do here. What's with all these little treaties all over the place, not with the nation? See? So they were split up. Some of them, I believe, were not signatory. They didn't have any authority whatsoever to sign those treaties. And others signed them thinking that this man is honorable. I believe that's where some of them start to realize he has no honor. Too little, too late. Now we go back to what the time period when all this happened. We can think about it, do the assessment, share our thoughts or whatever we think we know about it. Let's move up. Today we have not the intelligence, we have the understanding of the rule of law that binds treaties. That's what I'm trying to get across. So all these treaties made, we have to look at, first of all, the rule of law, not the stipulations written by those who's determined to put you in a POW camp for the rest of your life, or until they terminate that, bring it up to date as well. Does that help you?
Well, I just like the Assembly of First Nations, and this whole Indian question, if you want to call it that. The
Yeah.
feds spend billions. It's not just $7 or $8 billion, but when you include all the payments for cows and plows or residential, they spend tens of billions of dollars, and a lot of that goes to the AFN and to the tribal councils and to the band councils, and yet here we are out in the communities. Things are rough. Multiple stabbings the other day during the AFN on the anniversary of the James Smith multiple stabbings. Methamphetamines or crystal meth is taken over from alcohol. Fentanyl, cheap drugs, and they're on the reserves. That's why people are having it so rough out there. People are being murdered left, right, and center. If it
Well, it's pre-planned. It's obviously pre-planned. They've even legalized it. They're saying it's out of control, so make it legal. Set up shooting galleries. Go crank up wherever you want. It's sanctioned. Why? They've got to get rid of most of the population, and if they can, all Indian people. I'm serious. That's their objective. Because it's only the Indian that can possibly stop them. Whatever their intention are in relation to Bill C-5 or whatever they're trying to pass in the future. It's only the Indian. And believe me, in my travels, I've come across those who are starting to stand up to be Indian. They know who they are. Anishinaabe, Yihawk, Patak. They know who they are. But the term that binds us is Indian. Indio. So I look at everything that involves the alien forces. Start with the police. Whatever kind of contracts they get, wherever the money comes from, it's still Indian money. All of it. Well, we can't say the money, but that's happens what they grind out when they got a lot of resources. They just print it. Yeah, print it up, print millions and billions. They talk about the country being in debt, they're doing it. There's no reason why Indian people should be poor as they are. It's been said before my time. The point of it is, we're not to become like them, but we shouldn't be living in poverty, especially when we know everything is stolen. I referred to some of them who don't like what I say and challenge me and despise me. I tell them straight out. Those who are non-Indian, tell them, look, to end this, think about this. You are a descendant of liars and thieves. Anybody who identifies as Canadian is a descendant of a liar and thief. And some of our own people think they're Canadian citizens without any legal proof. Because I can prove otherwise. They can never be. It's only assumption. But that assumption they use against the Indian. That assumption is in their courts. They assume jurisdiction because, figure, this guy don't know who he is. So, when I go into the courts, they know differently. They're not talking to an idiot, but the way they classify our people. Because we don't know their law doesn't mean we're stupid. I told one of the cops one time, he arrested me a few times. We're talking about law. I told him, I probably broke more laws than they're ever going to teach you. Meaning I could be your teacher. The point of it is, they're the criminal. And you should never feel in any way guilty. I'm talking about living on this land, living your right as a descendant of a sovereign via treaty, rule of law. You should never be afraid. You should be able to go and do it. But again, there's that process of removal from that jurisdiction, which I know very well, and they don't dare dispute it. It's too exacting by law. So that's what I invite people to do. I don't know. Maybe I'm too scary. I don't know what it is. Maybe there's no money in it. But people talk about, the land. The land is the future. The children are the future. And they get paid for those kind of talks all across this country. Not one of them want to come on board and become who they're supposed to be to really take back the land as we should. By law, by our law. So a lot of the things that are going on in the reserves, it's a direct result, we could say mismanagement, closing a blind eye, all that kind of stuff. I'm sorry it isn't. It's pre-planned. Most of the challenges come from, I can't say the reserve level, quite a bit does, but it comes primarily when people become aware after they leave the reserve and they see the real oppression of our people and live it. I'm not saying they have to, I'm saying they shouldn't have to. But they become learned in a hurry. And a lot of them fall by the wayside. And for generations, we've dealt with those kind of things. I just read a couple articles. They praise people, make them part of the Order of Canada and everything like that. They put statues up for Louis Riel and everything. This guy was bootlegging to the Dakotas, trying to get them to go against the government of Canada. That's what he was doing down there. How many people think he's such a hero now? I'm not trying to condemn those that are already in the other world. No. Learn by their mistakes. Don't become like them. Don't try to hide shit. That's what the whole society does. They try to hide the fact that these things are happening to the Indian purposely. It's done purposely. And a lot of our people become victims of it because the destitute situation that they're being forced to live by. That's what it is. They become so destitute, they become downtrodden spiritually. When that breakdown happens, it's like checkmate, got one. Well, in this case, they're going to get lost because they got them now turning against each other.
Is there any way to get out of that? Is there any way to get out of that hole?
Yeah. Start dealing at our level, the people's level, with a lot of their drugs dealers on these reserves and beyond the reserve, in the communities, everywhere. You can go join a force like the Bear Patrol and go by what the cops tell you. Well, they're involved too. Don't ever kid yourself. They're involved. Now, where, as I said earlier, the shoe's on the other foot. We could do this. I can't call it, but there are those who I know can. But first of all, it's got to be sanctioned that we start to clean it up. Then there's those reserves who can send for us. I'll come. I'm 82 years old, but I'll be there for the law aspect of it to make sure nobody is harmed for what they do. If they're called in to clean it up, I know the people that will do it. And I keep that part quiet. Because that becomes, to me, the real patriot that we always talk about, the warrior, this and that. I'll become the real patriot, patriotic to the earth and its people. Not any corporation or the dictates of a police force that don't give a damn about your brother being addicted and dying in the gutter or whatever.
Well, old man, the AFN is over for this time. The last Indian chief has flown off into the sunset, per diem check in hand. Until next time, we'll talk to you again soon.
All right, we will so.
Oh.
Oh.